Elizabeth Edwards has endured gut-wrenching challenges. She's a parent who lost a child, a woman with incurable cancer, a wife whose adulterous husband, former presidential candidate John Edwards, betrayed her while we all looked on. In her new book, Resilience, which has taken the media by storm, Elizabeth Edwards has risen from victim to survivor. Okay, that's what we're supposed to say. Now for a moment of what we're really thinking. Why? Why put us all through this pain and agony? Oh, I'm not talking about watching Elizabeth Edwards rehash the sordid details of being cheated on. I'm talking about watching the media try to legitimize this book as a productive piece of literature. Remember when this all shook out, Elizabeth Edwards and others accused the National Enquirer of being a trashy tabloid printing absurd lies? Now she's written a book exposing the truth, which contains the exact same information she said they lied about, which means, in fact, they were telling the truth. So doesn't this mean her book is no more legitimate than a trashy tabloid? And what's it cost, like what, 20 bucks? Obviously, all we need to know about people we don't really hear about, we can find out from the Enquirer for $1.50. Look, I don't have a problem with people making money, especially authors, because I'm one myself. What I do have a problem with is the stunning difference in how the media treats authors on the left and authors on the right. For instance, for the past month, Mark Levin's Liberty and Tyranny has been flying off the shelf. It's #1 on Amazon, #1 on New York Times bestseller list, but you haven't seen him interviewed on the Today Show, the Good Morning Show, the Good Night Show, the Good Evening Show, whatever shows that I can't watch. The point is, he's written a successful, important, inspiring, well thought out, well-researched book, and it promotes the traditional values that have made this country great. Therefore, he's gotten no love from the media, which is crazy, because it's even more of a media story because it's been flying off the shelf with no love from the media. Look, it'd be a different matter altogether if Resilience was going to expose who the real John Edwards is. But we all know John Edwards is no less honest than Timothy Geithner on April 15th. There's not one person who thinks that a guy who bleaches his teeth, gets $400 haircuts, and wears "how cute is my butt in these jeans" would be a faithful hubby. Oh, here's something juicy. In her book, Mrs. Edwards basically calls John's mistress, Raelle, a home-wrecking groupie who John was probably attracted to because she was so different. The deal is, John Edwards is a pretty boy and a self-proclaimed narcissist. Any woman has to show him two things to get him hot and bothered. That's right, a comb and a mirror. So no one is actually really shocked that a man who repeatedly accused this country of having two Americas has two families. Except, I suppose, the media, which has already started treating Elizabeth Edwards like a victim, even though she probably knew who John was early on. Check it out. Elizabeth was quoted as saying, "The only gift I asked John for when we were married was to be faithful." Word to Elizabeth, a gift when you get married is a slap chop. Listen, if a woman has to ask her soon-to-be spouse for the gift of fidelity, she knows something's not right. So the next time the media wants to talk about victims, maybe they should talk about how they treated Sarah Palin. Because it was they who aggressively lied about her family, her beliefs, her experience as a governor, and labeled her dumb. Yet they promote Elizabeth Edwards as really smart. And they say that her writing this book is empowering for a woman. Really? I'm sorry, but the last time I looked, she and John were still married, so wouldn't half the money she'd received from this book sale belong to him too? Call me the dummy, but how smart and empowering is that? You know, the left has defined female empowerment as many things over the years. Abortion on demand, abandoning your family to find yourself, and even pole dancing. But now I guess nothing sells empowerment like a woman sharing the fruits of her labor with a man who's waiting for her to kick the bucket so he can go live with his baby mama. It's my guess the media will also portray Mrs. Edwards as a role model. But a role model for who? Hillary Clinton? By the way, can I make a suggestion to political women on the left? If you can't trust your husbands to love you after taking marriage vows, don't expect us to trust they'll love our country after taking the oath of office. See, maybe it's just me, but I think a role model for women should help women realize their self-worth and expectation to be a priority in a man's life. But obviously, Elizabeth Edwards was cool when she said, "John, this will be a horrible path. It's untreatable and will no doubt be a painful and horribly ugly death. So if you want to go ahead with your campaign, it's completely up to you." And John was like, "All right, thanks, babe. I can't wait to tell Raelle the good news." The truth is, a real role model should set an example of strength and self-respect, like Laura Bush, who gave her husband an ultimatum. It's me or the bottle, baby. Being the decider, he decided she was more important, which must have been really tough because if anybody had a reason to drink, it would be George Bush. Yet, because our progressive-induced culture is so turned on its head, this woman isn't considered a role model. In fact, she was told by this woman, who, by the way, the media did consider a role model because she was married to this guy, instead of this guy, who, unlike this guy and this guy, managed to keep his in his pants. Nevertheless, this woman and this woman are promoted as brave examples of female survival, when in reality, rather than truly taking responsibility and dealing with their lying, cheating husbands, they attacked this woman and this woman for sleeping with their lying, cheating husbands. And the deal is, if we wanted to watch women get disrespected by men, then beat up on the woman using the justification, but I love him, we can watch him on this guy's show. As far as Elizabeth Edwards goes, I admit she has gone through some really tough challenges, and I'm sympathetic to that. But mind you, I'm sympathetic to the things that were not under her control, not the things she chose to endure. The deal is, I resent the media assisting in launching a book campaign for a woman who's willing to go along with her husband as he ran for the presidency of the country I love. And together they asked people to give millions of dollars knowing he was the wrong man for the job, and now they're painting her as the victim. I also resent the fact that Elizabeth Edwards won't likely get called on this behavior during her book tour due to a media who, unlike the media of the past, won't demand hard explanations or even an apology, as they would undoubtedly do to someone on the right. But then again, who knows? We'll see. Her book tour is just beginning. Maybe, just maybe, I'll be proven wrong.